Mind you, we'll hear from the Mayor as well at the top of the next hour, but let's talk about party leaders and big party political figures. Well, there was a time when it would appear that UKIP was having elections for a leader almost on a monthly basis, but hopefully that might now die down with the relatively recent election and success enjoyed by Henry Bolton, who has taken over the party as recently as last month. This is the first opportunity for us to meet, and he's in the studio to take your calls. And before we take the first call, thank you for coming along, Mr. Bolton.
You're welcome.
What do you bring to the leadership of UKIP, would you say?
A great deal of real-world experience, and a fresh pair of eyes in terms of organising the party, developing campaigns, planning campaigns and taking them forward.
What's the biggest challenge you face?
The first thing is to re-energise the party. That's an internal issue. Get the party fit to fight. The second thing, obviously, is to hold the government's feet to the flames in terms of Brexit.
What do you mean by that?
Well, at the moment, they've had a mandate from 17.4 million people to get us out of the European Union. And it's not happening. We're still in the customs union, still in the single market, still our parliament and our courts are subordinate to a foreign power, in effect. And nothing's actually happened to change any of that.
What should have happened in these 16 or so months?
Well, I mean, on the 24th of June, the Prime Minister should have actually issued immediate instructions to start the planning and preparation to leave. Worst case scenario, plan for the worst, hope for the best. None of that's happened. So that's one of the foundations of a successful negotiation, is to actually prepare to leave, and that's not happened.
Is it time, perhaps, as some commentators are saying, to suggest that we're happy to walk away, to get to play a little bit more hardball, to use that expression?
I think we should play hardball. We've got the upper hand in many respects. We're a net contributor to the European Union. There's no denying the fact that us leaving would leave a big hole in the budget. That gives us a powerful leverage.
And you're not nervous on the trade front?
No, I mean, it's going to be winners and losers, and likewise with the economy. I mean, there's about 17% on top of our food bills for the average family, because we're in the European Union and part of the Common Agricultural Policy. We've got similar things going on in fisheries. I mean, our fish is more expensive as a result, and our stocks are being depleted. So it swings and roundabouts. There's a great deal of adjustment to be made, and my concern is that the government has given zero clarity on any of this to business and to commerce generally, and so they've been unable to prepare.
And just lastly, before we go to the callers, and Robert, you're going to be the first caller. So you say that is your biggest challenge. You may well be right, but surely there's an equal challenge in that you now head a party that in 2015 enjoyed 12.6% of the vote at a general election, and in 2017 went down to 1.8%. That is calamitous. Yeah, that's the relegation zone, isn't it, if you're a football manager, Mr. Bolton? The chairman would be asked if he has confidence in you if that happened.
But it wasn't me. The policy of not standing candidates in every constituency was a grave error. And a lot of that reduction in our vote share was simply because a lot of people couldn't vote for UKIP. The other thing, of course, that a lot of people voted Conservative because they thought that the Conservative government, being the government, was going to be able to deliver on Brexit, and that's what they said they would do. Well, we're not seeing that happen. There's no movement really on that. We're just pushing it sort of out to the right. So I think there are a lot of people who've been in touch with me and with our headquarters telling us, well, look, I'm very sorry, I did vote Conservative in the last election. What a terrible mistake. I shall never vote Tory again. I will always vote UKIP in future. I can't trust them. So there is that mood out there.
Let's get the calls through to you. Robert's in Rochester, and you're through to Henry Bolton. Go ahead, Robert. Good morning.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, sir.
Right, well, if I can just quickly refer to, I've only once rung up before, and that was talking to Majid the other week.
Oh, yes.
I had a sort of, obviously I'm not making accusations, but I thought that it's just smelt a bit wrong, the election between him and the UKIP leader, and how he was suddenly come from nowhere and won the vote. Majid was referring to him as Andy Cap.
What my colleague Majid referred to Henry Bolton as Andy Cap?
Yeah, like, who is he?
I see.
I made a comment of, like, what Nigel Farage said in the UK, like, in the MEP, as an MEP, who are you? No one's heard of you.
Right,
So
right.
I'd never heard of him. To cut a long story short, I explained I'm 40-odd years old. I've never voted before. The only time I did vote ever in my lifetime, because all the political parties to me pretty much seem the same with Labour and Conservative. Things don't change that much. I voted to leave the EU. So Majid made a point.
So what is your question? Okay, what is your question of Henry Bolton then? I've got to move you to that.
Is he feeling secure as the leader of UKIP? Is he worried about the new party being formed by Anne-Marie Waters for Britain? And the reason I asked that is I took a brief 10 minutes about an hour ago to go on his Facebook site, and these are obviously his friends. He displays who his friends are, but within 10 minutes I've found several of his friends. One of them's displayed on their Facebook profile picture.
All right, we need to hear from Mr. Bolton. Okay, Robert, stay on the line. Anne-Marie Waters, of course, you beat her into second place. She's a controversial figure who has very strong views about Islam. You beat her by, over 1,000 votes, but do you have concerns? Is the party still split?
No, a lot of people joined the party in June when Anne-Marie said that she was going to stand in the leadership. A lot of people joined the party at that point. Those people have now, or a lot of them, have left. I don't know whether all of them have left, but a lot did. They joined to support her. She's no longer in the party, or she's set up her own party, and people have left as a result. I'm not concerned about that.
You're not concerned about her setting up a party?
No, I'm not. The constitution of UKIP is very clear that we will not act in any way that's prejudiced to anybody or any individual or group based on their race, religion, ethnicity, or anything else. And she wants to set up a party, and the core thrust of it is Islam, which is a serious issue, absolutely, and we need to have that discussion.
What discussion do we need to have about Islam?
Well, we need the concern that there is out there. We've got radical Islam out there. We've got jihadism. We've got there is a security threat, but it's not associated with all Muslims. There is an issue, I believe, over the use of Saudi textbooks in some of our schools. There's an issue over foreign funding of some of our independent schools. There are a number of issues which we need to discuss. So she's got some points, but the method of putting it across and the core thrust of being having to deal with Islam as a religion is not something that UKIP as a core policy wants to pursue.
When the International Development Minister Rory Stewart says that British ISIL fighters should be killed in Syria rather than be allowed to return to the UK, do you agree with him?
I do. Islamic State is an enemy. It's an enemy of this country and this people. And if somebody from this country or anywhere else wants to go and fight for Islamic State, they become an enemy of this country and our people.
But if we don't kill them in Syria or Iraq, what happens when they try and come back to Britain?
Well, if they come back to Britain because they're British citizens, well, I think we need to take the Treason Act out of the Public Order Act, where Tony Blair put it. We need to make it fit for purpose. We need to have different grades of it. And some of those need to be made usable for dealing with these people. If you go to fight with or support an enemy of this country, an enemy that we're at war with, then you should be subject to the Treason Act. That you can't be at the moment. It doesn't work in that way. And
that's because Tony Blair... What did Tony Blair do?
Tony Blair reviewed the Treason Act and he moved it. He incorporated it within the Public Order Act. And it's now pretty unusable. Certainly in these circumstances, it's unusable. So we need to have a good review of that, and we need to make it applicable. These people are traitors. And that's quite simple. And if they die fighting against us, then so be it.
And just lastly, there was some confusion a week or so ago as regards your stances with as we're on the subject of Islam, with the subject of burqas. You're against those, are you?
What I'm against is anything that makes it difficult to identify a person in public. So that's a full face covering.
Right.
Now, a burqa is a full face covering, and in that respect, we should, I think, ban burqas. Howew, it's not about the burqa as a religious form of dress.
What do you have?
It's about motorbike helmets. It's about balaclavas. It's about hoodies. Which, if you cannot
you're going
see
to ban
somebody's
hoodies.
Face, no, if you cannot see somebody's face, they've got something wrapped around their face. Then, if somebody walks into a petrol station with a balaclava on, it's a bit odd, isn't it? And it's also a security risk. You can't identify somebody through CCTV and so on. And I think there is an issue. And there is a perception issue also. And in addition, with the burqa, and we need to have this conversation as well, there is an issue as to what it says about the treatment of women. Now, we also have to recognise that a lot of women are, Muslim women, want to wear the burqa. They believe in it. So we have to be a bit careful with that as well. So
Well, sorry, how can you be a bit... Either you banned it or you haven't banned it.
no, as a public full face covering, it should be banned.
Right.
No.
So you're not being careful about it at all, then? You just said we have to be, quotes, a bit careful.
But we don't. We don't have to be going at it like a bull in a china shop. I mean, we don't have to go out and say we are banning the burqa, full stop, as this party did for the last in the lead up to the last general election. It's about what the problem is. The problem is about the full face covering. Now, I don't know why everybody wants to focus on the burqa as. I mean, it's not the only full face covering.
Right.
So it's about full face coverings in public.
Right. Okay, let's take one more call before we go to some news. Milan in Chiswick, you're on the radio, Milan. Go ahead. Good morning.
Morning. Just a bit confused. Yes, two leading subjects. Firstly, the logo of UKIP. If I was new, it's a bit ridiculous. I think either you're associated with the Premier League or Africa, given the way the line is, and it leads to the confusion about immigration because I'm an immigrant, British Indian, same as my mum. My mum's actually received an award by the Queen for a contribution to Britain. But actually, I don't know what you stand for immigration for immigrants like us. So I was wondering if you could elucidate.
Just to explain to listeners, the new, I think it's new logo, has a lion's, I think it's a roaring lion's head, which is quite similar to the Premier League, isn't it? That's a slip, that logo, isn't it?
I wouldn't call it a slip, but it's. I know what you mean by it's similar to the.
What would you call it then?
I would call it similar to the Premier League.
Right, you're sticking
call
with
it a
it,
slip.
are you?
Sorry?
Are you sticking with it?
Yeah, we're going to make some small adjustments to it, probably.
Like what?
Well, that's something that we're working on.
Well, it's not that hard, is it? You just get a bloke or a woman in and you just redesign it. What's it going to be? Is this still going to be a
Yeah,
lion?
but come on, Nick. If I were to try and do that, or if you tried to do it,
it'd be
probably end up,
horrific.
it would.
But you'll have experts in the field. You can get a marketing agency or a comms agency in to do that. What are you going to do to it? How's it going to change?
It may change in ways that you won't even notice.
What the hell does that mean? What are you going to put a burqa on this lion's head? What are you going to do?
Nick, it was adopted at our conference, okay? And it's fully bulletproof in terms of copyright.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Okay, but back to Milan's point, there is a confusion, isn't there?
Between us and the Premier League.
The logos is what he says. No, not what you guys do, but you'll accept that.
We're not in the business of starting a
What
football
is the lion
team
trying... I think also what is the lion trying to portray?
I mean, the lion is trying to portray that we are British, that the Britain is a strong country. It's got a strong, proud tradition behind it. The lion has been used. There are, if you go back and you go to Trafalgar Square, you see the lions at the bottom of Nelson's column. You see Britannia with her lions. The lion has been
football team, everything. Yeah,
correct.
Indeed.
It is British, and I get it that lions now roam Africa. But it's about the symbolism. It's not about the biology.
Quick response from you, Milan, before I move on. Quick response, Mr. Bolton.
Just wondered what your stance on immigration was.
Your stance on immigration.
Right. I've said publicly that we're going back to the 2015 manifesto as our baseline policy, and that had a number of elements to it. First of all, putting in a points system for immigration. Now, I know the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary have both said that doesn't work because it means that they wouldn't be able to prevent people coming in if they've accrued the right number of points. Well, that's absolute tosh. Of course, under international law, any country's got the right to stop somebody entering or crossing the borders. It's also we'd have an equal approach towards all people, not give preference to European Union citizens. This is post us leaving the European Union, of course, not at the present time.
End immigration for unskilled jobs for a 5-year period. You stay with that?
Yes. At the moment. Now, what we're going to do, as I say, the 2015 manifesto is a baseline, so I'm just about to task the party spokesman to start reviewing that and reviewing the 2015 policies, because, of course, we're now sort of 2.5 years moved on, and we need to update them and refresh them. So there will be some changes emerging over the next few months.
Okay, and all visitors to the UK must have health insurance?
Yes.
You'd have that as well?
Yes.
How would we check that?
That's the moment. Well, that's what we've got to look at in the 2015 manifesto.
You don't know how we check
Well, we
it,
don't.
do you?
No, not yet.
Well,
We've got to put the right processes in place.
Okay. Barry's in Norwood. Barry, you're on the radio. Go ahead. Good morning.
Hi there, good morning. Henry Bolton, sorry, you've mentioned the zero net migration target and you've warned against the rise of Islam. How is it you intend to bring the country together when you seem to be so divisive? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to help?
Well, first of all, I dispute that we're divisive. I mean, I think the country itself has a big concern with a range of issues. Everything from the cuts to our emergency services and armed forces, which we will be opposing strongly in the months to come. You'll see that. In terms of at the local level, people just simply don't have a voice in their communities. Planning developments go ahead without, in total contravention of the views of the local community. We will be launching a campaign aimed at giving people back their voice within their communities. There are a whole range of things that I think people are concerned about, and we will get support, I believe, on the basis of having policies and that support people's concerns, that give them another route.
Quick response from you.
It doesn't seem that's the way. I mean, it seems that your entire rhetoric from Brexit onwards has all been about division, splitting the country up, creating lines, creating pockets of communities, and separating people. That's what it seems, and it seems that that's what your policy is going to continue doing.
Well, I would challenge you to come up with one single policy that says we want to draw lines, and we want to do that.
You personally warned against something just last week or week before. You warned against the dominating rise of Islam, as though there aren't Muslim people, and it's not a matter of dominating the rise of Islam. There are separate, different types of community. People need to work together. People were working largely together before UKIP and their ilk came in and divided.
Well, Barry, what I would say to you is that I would agree with you in terms of what Anne-Marie Waters is doing. But we are, in the leadership result, it was quite clear that the UKIP membership voted for a suite of policies across the whole range of government and administration. It's not all about drawing lines. And the other thing is that, we talk about multiculturalism, and I'm, fine, that should enrich us. And if you go to somewhere like Austria, they'll say that culture is about the arts, it's about music, it's about cuisine, it's about dance, it's about painting. Here, we've got a multicultural approach, which is fine, but where is the British culture in that? We do need to an extent, we do need to preserve our own British identity and British way of life. And if you carry a British passport, you should understand what it is to be British. It's not simply about access to British healthcare, British education. It is you're signing into into an identity.
And what is it to be British?
Well, I think that's what we need to do. And I'm not going to do.
You, what is it to be British?
As UKIP, I'm not going to say what it should be, but what I would like to do.
Well, you don't have any idea what it is to be British.
I do, but it's not for me to dictate. It's not for me to dictate to the British people what being British means.
No, but they'd be interested. But I think you are the leader of a political party.
Yes, I am.
What is it? You must have a sense of what it is to be British.
Well, I think it is about those things of fair play. It's about treating everybody fairly and equally.
But not if they're wearing a burqa.
No, absolutely. Look,
you're not treating everybody equally, Mr. Bolton, because if I happen to be married to a woman who wants to wear a burqa, she's not allowed out.
Right. Well, we had a terrible issue in Nuneaton. Now, we
must be careful because there is someone. But yes, okay,
correct, right. So if somebody walks into a place like that with a shotgun, okay, then that you deal with them appropriately.
But that had nothing to do with wearing a burqa.
No, but what I'm saying here is there are various degrees and extremes, and all I'm saying is that we've got to look at the right solutions for the problem, and the burqa in some respects poses a problem,
right.
And what's also posing a problem is that the British identity, the British people, if I don't know how many people listening have spent time. Even let's go and look at the European Union. Okay, France is probably the biggest exception, followed by Belgium. But to what I'm going to say, but if you go to somewhere like Austria, then people there, wherever they've come from, if they've got Austrian citizenship, they buy into being Austrian. They're proud of being Austrian. And here we've got a different approach to it. We've got a different attitude. So I just like to see a reflection as we go forward into post-Brexit.
You don't think immigrants who come here buy into being British?
Many don't. No, I don't believe they do, and we don't encourage them to do so. And we really don't. We have a lot of people here who their English is very poor. We've done very little to help them integrate. So
what should we do then? English classes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
you and I pay for.
Let me give you an example.
Well, are we going to pay for English classes on our taxes?
Well, yeah, we would have to. And look, no,
Why have I
listen
got to
me,
pay
Nick.
for someone to learn the language who's just arrived from Brazil?
Listen to me. We've got the Gurkha community. Now, I'm fully supportive of the Gurkhas being a part of being allowed to reside in the UK. I think that's an excellent move. I fully support it. The Gurkha soldiers are taught English. They're given an orientation to the
but
UK.
they're soldiers.
Yeah, they are.
That's a sort of quid pro quo. They'll put their lives on the line.
Correct. But they are also allowed to bring their families in.
Right.
And we don't give the same support to their families.
It's going to cost a lot of money, Mr. Bolton,
it
these
is,
classes.
Particularly if we've got
Why doesn't the person pay?
Particularly if we've got 350,000 people a year coming in.
But if I've just arrived from Brazil or Bangladesh, I should damn well pay for the language courses myself,
right,
shouldn't I?
well, let's... Indeed.
Well, hang on. You just said the state was going to pay.
Right, well, no, we have to pay for some of the infrastructure, of course we do. But indeed, I think you're absolutely right. Then the individual should pay for things like the language courses. And the point system that I was talking about earlier, part of that point system needs to be whether or not people speak English, whether they can write English, whether they understand. They need to pass the tests to accrue the points. You can't just sort of say to somebody, yes, you've got the points and you can come in, then you learn. It's about getting the skills in place, the knowledge in place, the qualifications in place before you come here.
All right, let's try and get at least one more call. Everybody wants to have their say. We must get to Terry in Hatfield. You're through to Henry Bolton. Go ahead, Terry. Morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Bolton.
Good morning.
Your question, please. Thank you.
With you talking about being in support of the Gurkhas, what's your view on this new announcement of the police pulling the support for poppy parades?
This is a story you might not have had sight of. Unfortunately, it's broken last night that the police forces in Nottinghamshire, West Midlands and elsewhere have said they're not going to be able to provide officers to police the Remembrance Sunday parades because they simply haven't got the manpower. This also comes, of course, Mr. Bolton, as you'll be aware, there's growing concern over some police stunts in which they paint their fingernails various colours, or one officer wore red high-heel shoes to highlight domestic violence. It seems a strange choice of financial priorities. Henry Bolton?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I used to be a police officer, and we'd never painted our fingernails, toenails, or wore high heels, so I can promise you. Things seem to have changed somewhat.
Changed for the worse?
I think so. I mean, look, the police, the job is a serious job.
Yes.
It is to enforce the law. It's not to pursue gimmicks like that. And there is also a concern over some of the recent policing of certain events, where actually there's a political statement almost being made by the police, which I don't approve of at all. The police need to be entirely politically neutral, and just simply get on with the job, not be distracted.
Why did you leave the police?
I left the police because I was actually seconded abroad to head up the police.
Did you enjoy
in
being a copper?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What did you like about it?
I loved being able to stand between people who would be victims and the people who would do harm. I felt that was a really important thing to do, and it was a meaningful thing to do. It was tough, but I enjoyed it, yes.
Last minute or so with you, you've admitted you've got to look at your finances, given that the UKIP leader's job is unpaid. How are you going to fund your leadership?
We're going to fund that, don't worry.
Doesn't really answer the question, does it? How are you going to fund it?
No, it's going to be funded.
Right. Is Aaron Banks helping?
No.
He's not helping at all?
He's offered to help the party.
Yes.
I've got meetings coming up with donors and so on, but that's outside that.
Right. Well, is the Kremlin funding it? Who is going to be funding the leadership of UKIP? Yet. Who is going to be funding the leadership? We do. We have a right to know, don't we?
I'm not
is
sure
it privately?
we do. No, there is no solution to that at the moment. And at the moment, I'm funding myself.
Right, but you can't afford that going ahead, can you, forever?
I might have to, I don't know.
Is that what you're going to do? You will
I don't know. I hope not.
Right, and you're going to stand as an
I entered this knowing it wasn't paid. And if I don't get any sort of remuneration from this, then we'll be selling the home and so on. This is a job that has
You'll
to be
sell
done.
your house to pay for your leadership?
I will, if I have to.
You feel it that keenly?
I do. I absolutely do. This country is at such a juncture now that there is a desperate need for a bit of leadership and a pro-Brexit opposition. And it's crucial, whatever the result of the next couple of years, that is going to dictate for generations the future of this country and its people. And it's absolutely desperate that we get some leadership involved. And UKIP is in the right position to provide some of that leadership.
And your wife knows you might have to flog the house?
Yes, she does.
And does she react to that?
She's nervously supportive.
Lovely couple of words there. Well, it's been a pleasure meeting you, Henry Bolton. Thank you very much indeed. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. We'll have a whip round or something like that. We'll buy pins.
Please do.
Henry. Yes, indeed, the UKIP. All right, Henry Bolton appearing here as the leader of UKIP. Thanks for having your board. Coming up,
Cheers,
we
mate.
hear from
Thanks.
London Mayor Sadiq Khan. We get into that T-charge story here on Full on LBC, where news is next.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, the cost of driving into central London has nearly doubled for the most polluting cars. The T-charge has started this morning. The toxicity charge is £10 on top of the congestion charge, mainly affecting